Alright guys, so this is your second selection tool demo in Photoshop. So hopefully you've already watched and practiced the marquee tools and adding some adjustments to your selection. So the next tools I'm going to show you get even more exciting, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see more easily. So the next tools I'm going to show you are your QuickSelect tool and your MagicWand tool. Okay, so these are the really fun ones, and Photoshop has gotten so much better since these tools were first invented. This is basically Photoshop being super, super smart and doing a lot of the work for you. And these tools actually learn as you go, so they actually kind of figure out what it is you're trying to select based on the thing that you click on. So I'm going to start with the quick selection tool, which I think it looks kind of like a little paintbrush with you can see the little marching ants kind of coming off of it. So you can see my cursor here, or my brush actually, is round and has a little plus sign in the middle. So the default, again, if you look up here, these are the options for this tool. The default is going to be to add to your selection. And just like in Lightroom, you can change the size of your brush by, on your keyboard, hitting the right bracket to increase, which you can see it increasing here, or the left bracket to decrease. So depending on the size of the what you're trying to select, I would suggest that you adjust your brush and not try to use, let's say, like, a huge brush, because like I'm trying to select the carpet over here and I'm going to get a lot more than that with a brush this size, etc. So what I'm trying to try and do is select the carpet so that I can delete it. I'm going to unlock my background so it'll let me do that. So I go ahead and start clicking here, and you can see that it's basically, well, it kind of selected all of it there. But at first, you can see if I zoom in, it's being really smart about figuring out where my edge is. So the edge between what I clicked on and other stuff. So it's doing a pretty decent job figuring out the selection. However, fur and hair are some of the hardest things to select because there's just so many little things sticking out. And I'll show you kind of what a not very good selection looks like in a second, and this is why you got to get good at using these tools so that you can make your selections really perfect, so that I could move this corgi onto, like, a beach in Florida and it would look just like he was really there, as opposed to, something I cut out with a, pair of scissors that didn't work very well. So if I want to add to my selection, I can just go ahead and keep clicking around here. So you'll notice it's trying to figure it out, but as I click and drag, it just keeps not knowing quite where that edge is. So I can also go a little bit at a time by deleting one piece at a time. That's sometimes how I do it. But let's say I'm trying to get this part of the carpet and I've got a little bit of corgi's ear here. What do I do about that? So if you go up here to your options, you'll see that another one of your options is the minus, or the subtract selection tool, and you'll see there's a little minus sign in the center of my brush now. So I'm actually removing that part of my selection so that when I delete, I don't delete the ear. You can also actually, so I'm going to go back to my add selection. You can automatically switch over, because it's annoying to keep coming up here and clicking, you can automatically switch over to your minus selection just by holding the option key down. So again, here you can see me removing parts of my selection, and then I can add them back just by removing my hand from that option key on the keyboard. It's pretty cool. So again, holding the option key, and hopefully, let's see, you can see that convert to a minus sign when I do that. So I'm going to go ahead and go around and delete that very last little bit, and then I'm going to zoom in so you can see. So this isn't a perfect selection, right? You're not getting all that detail of the little fur sticking out here, but this is like, this is a pretty basic selection. So like, let's say I want to go ahead and put a gradient background here. Whoops. So this is interesting. If I wanted to put a gradient on, and have it be behind the dog, then I would want to put it in its own layer, whereas before you probably saw it just went over the dog, which is not what I wanted. Let's see, I'm going to do another gradient. Now I'm just having fun. I'm going to do another gradient in another color. Woo! So with the gradient tool, well, I won't get too much into the gradient tool, but if you want to play around with it, we'll talk about it in a future demo. Anyway, so you can see my very basic, not super great selection of the corgi on a gradient background. And that's good for practicing, just kind of seeing what you can do with the QuickSelect tool. QuickSelect is really good when you have a nice clean edge because the algorithm in Photoshop can tell exactly where it is and it's easier for it to pick out, whereas an edge like this that's kind of messy usually requires a little bit of work later, and I will show you that in a different demo. The other tool that I wanted to show you is, so I'm going to go ahead and undo all of this. I'm just going to go way back to the beginning. There we are. Okay. So the other tool in here is called the MagicWand tool. And the MagicWand, the way it works is it tries to select everything that's exactly like the thing that you clicked on. So if I click on the dog's nose, it's trying to pick out basically the pixels that are just the same color, the same tone as whatever you clicked on. So again, if I try and click on this white part of the dog's face, it's trying to figure out what do you want? Or if I click on this red, it's trying to pick out the pixels that match. This photograph is not a very good contender for using the MagicWand tool. Here's the thing, like these tools are all good for different things. The marquee tool that I showed you before is good for selecting rectangles and ovals or circles. The QuickSelect tool is really pretty good at selecting slightly more complex images like this, but your MagicWand is really best at selecting things where it's really clearly defined. There are really clearly defined edges between, like, let's say black and white. However, there is something that you can do, which is you can increase or decrease the tolerance of what is being selected. So right now that my tolerance is set at 40. So basically that means like that it's not like Photoshop is not being very picky about what it selects. It's like, that's close enough. So like for example, I clicked on this brown area and it's like, yeah, this is kind of like that. So it's being very tolerant. But if I decrease, let's say I decrease this to 10 and I click in that same spot. Okay, did you see what happened? It selected that. That's very different. So I'm going to show you that again. I'm going to switch it back to 40. If I click here, it selects all this stuff. It's basically like, yeah, whatever. It's pretty close. Then if I change this to 10 and I click that same spot, it chooses such a very small area. So if you want your tool to be pickier, you can change this and make it pickier. Or what happens if I go to 100? It's just going to grab a lot of stuff. Yeah, because it's like, whatever, these are colors that are sort of close-ish. So you have a little bit of say, but I'm going to show you the kind of image that is really great for MagicWand. And let's see, sunglasses, let's say. Here is an example of a photograph that would be great for MagicWand. In fact, let's just do that. So anything on a white background or a plain background is going to be super easy to select. Any kind of illustration. Okay, so here's my sunglasses. I've got my MagicWand tool. Let's say I just want to click this white area. It basically is like, oh, all of this is the same white. I know exactly what to do. I am just going to select all the white. So if I wanted to delete this background, it's easy to do. It's really easy, right? None of that sort of grabbing the wrong thing. And same thing if I wanted to select these the black frame of the sunglasses, because it's all the same black. There's not a lot of shadow. There's not a lot of fuzziness. It's not pixelated. It knows there's a nice hard edge here. You can see it's having a lot easier time with this than it did with the corgi photo. Right? I try to select here and I get this really messy selection. Again, my tolerance is all the way up, but even down at 40, it's having a hard time. Whereas over here, it's like, no problem. I know exactly what you want. and it selects pretty much the whole thing. Again, because of the nature of this image. So you're going to just have to choose your selection tool based on what it is that you're selecting, right? Kind of like how you use a fork to eat a salad instead of a spoon, right? You would never try to, well, yeah, you'd never try to eat a salad with a spoon, and it's not really going to work out for you. Or you'd never try to eat soup with a fork. Use the tool for the type of image that you're trying to edit. So that is your quick selection tool and your magic wand tool. And again, if you, the same kind of keyboard shortcuts apply here. So if you're adding to your selection, you can hold the shift key. I don't think I said that before. You can hold the shift key if you want to add to your selection. So here I'm holding the shift key and dragging, and it's slowly just adding to my selection until eventually everything will be selected. And it's hard to tell because eventually, you know, this is where your understanding of negative space is really helpful, because it's sort of like everything is defined as either being inside or outside the selection. And eventually it's sort of like, which is which? But I'm holding my shift key down and adding to my selection. Whereas if I wanted to remove parts of my selection, if I hold the option key and click, then it removes my selection. You can see that it automatically changes up here. So again, shift, I'm adding, option, I'm subtracting, right? Yeah, so go ahead and give these a try. Maybe experiment with a couple of different images so that you can see the difference between images that work best with QuickSelect and images that work best with MagicWand. And yeah, after you've made a selection, again, you can go to Image Adjustments, and you can try to, you know, make changes and see what happens, right? This is a terrible example, but you see what can happen when you are able to edit just part of your selection. All right, good luck, guys.